All right, boys, let's go.
Welcome back to another Northeast Offshore Report from On the Water. I'm Jimmy Fee. Sitting in for Anthony DeCicci this week is Matt Hefner. And as with every week, the Northeast Offshore Report is brought to you by SiriusXM Marine. Fish mapping is SiriusXM's most comprehensive plan, and it's available on your boat's display and includes access on your phone or tablet via the fish mapping app. Sirius anglers use every advantage available, and SiriusXM marks the spot where baitfish gather and game fish hunt. Learn more at SiriusXM.com/fishmapping. And Garmin Marine. Check out the Panoptix PS70 stainless steel through-hole transducer. It's powered by Garmin Rapid Return Sonar, which gives you live sonar views at up to 1,000 feet deep. See fish live, catch fish deep, Garmin.com. We had Striperfest this weekend, so no offshore fishing for us. But some people did get out after what was a really long stretch of weather. I think it was 9 or 10 days when few, if any, boats actually made it to do any tuna fishing. But we've had a few good days coming up where guys have gotten out. There have been some tuna caught. And I think I'll start off this week. We'll go north to south this week.
That works. So
Captain Bob of Seacoast, New Hampshire Sport Fishing, he sent in his report last night, Monday night, after a long and sharky day, he said. He said there's a lot of giants out there on Jeffrey's Ledge. The problem is that water temperature right now is 64 degrees. It is just like the prime temperature for blue sharks. He's hoping that as that temperature continues to drop through the month of October, the blue sharks will clear out and it'll just clear a lane for the bluefin to get to his baits, the giant bluefin. There's been, since the sea's flattened out, they've been seeing more recreational bluefin around, but they're kind of a moving target. So there's been a lot of them on the surface, but day to day they're covering a pretty wide range. He said that's because there's mackerel everywhere. He said there's bait everywhere. There's no concentration of bait. So that's why, one day the fish are popping up at Jeffrey's,
right.
Another day they're popping up at Pigeon Hill. So no real consistency to the recreational tuna bite. Moving down a little bit, Joe in Gloucester at Fisherman's Outfitters said there's been lots of action on Stowagon Bank. He said the southeast and southwest corners are producing fish. If you go off to the deeper water, you've got a better shot at finding some recreational-sized fish. Up in the shallower water, you have more giants. On the northeast and northwest corners, there's some fish as well, but the bait up there is pretty sparse. So if you're heading up there to giant fish, you're going to make sure you want to grab your bait on the way there. Some mackerel and pogies, there's plenty of it inshore. But if you think you're going to make your bait up on the middle bank to, say the northern edge of Stowagon Bank, it could be a tough day for you. The smaller recreational fish up there have been chasing half-beaks and mackerel. So there are some surface fishing opportunities, some topwater fishing opportunities up there for some of the boats that are seeing those fish.
That's good to hear. I mean, I haven't heard much of anything south of Cape Cod. It sounds like all that better fishing is kind of happening, like you said, up in Stellwagen Bank. I talked to Connor Swartz from Red Top Sporting Goods in Buzzards Bay this past week. He said hardly anyone has been really out because it's been, like we said, windy as hell. He said he last spoke to who tried to give it a shot last week and got as far as Monomoy. I believe he said he went out last Friday when there was like a little bit of a shift in the wind. The wind speeds kind of died down a little bit, and that's really the only weather window we've had, like you said, since the past 9 or 10 days. So gave it a shot last Friday, got as far as Monomoy, where they were met with like 8-foot swells, and kind of decided, let's play it safe and head back to the dock. So that's all that's really been going on up here. Obviously, we're hoping that maybe the gully bite will turn back on. Something will happen, south of Noman's Island. I know last year, right around this time, we started to see a big concentration of bunker around that area. So we'll see if that ends up materializing.
Yeah, so that was a really cool bite last year. You had a ton of bunker that were kind of filtering out of Cape Cod, the backwaters and things, these adult-sized bunker. And that was I think that went up all the way to Thanksgiving. Yeah, mid-October to Thanksgiving. And there were giants and some high 60-inch fish mixed in there, so some recreational fish as well. I saw some things on social media of guys seeing some adult bunker out there, snagging them and having tuna come up and actually eat the snagged bunker. But it seems like there's some sharks around as well that are kind of harrying the anglers, looking for those. I know some boats got out east of the Cape over the weekend, and it sounds like they didn't see much. Saw some mako sharks. That has been just a tough bite all season, and we keep waiting. We keep saying, okay, well, September's a big month out there. Maybe it'll materialize then. Again, like October is traditionally another really good month east of the Cape. And, There's still hope for it to happen, but I don't know. I think it's going to be something that might happen quickly.
Yeah.
And there's all those captains that are out there that have been checking it all season, putting in the time, putting in the miles. Like
Yeah.
Captain Alex, Cape Cod Offshore, Tighten Up Charters. Captain Dom. Those guys who fish out there, and man, when they do find them, and I'm sure they have been finding them, they're certainly not going to spread the word on social media. It's going to be pretty tight-lipped for a while because it's been a hard season. It has not been like south of Block Island where the fish have settled in and they've been in kind of a consistent and reliable pattern. It has been much more sporadic up here on Cape Cod. So if something does happen, you're going to be rewarded for making the report if you go out there and do it. I mean, this is October is when the butterfish used to come in, and you would see them under the floating sargassum, and they would the bluefin would love to eat them. They could be frustratingly picky, but it was always a fun, surface fishing, run and gun type of bite. So maybe that'll still happen this month. That would traditionally start up late September, run through mid-November. So don't give up hope on the outer Cape, on the east of the Cape just yet, east of Chatham yet.
Well, you talked about fish settling in, south of Block Island. That's kind of been the story down off of Long Island as well. We talked to Jeff Lamonaco from Whitewater Outfitters. He writes, our fishing planners for Long Island in the magazine, and he said that the wind has been very challenging, which is, the story across the board. But prior to the wind, there was a great bluefin and yellowfin bite inshore, around 170 to 180 feet of water near the old weather buoy area. It was a crazy chunk and jig bite. Poppers and stuff were working too for those yellowfin. And you had big bluefin from 60 to 70 inches mixed in with some 60-plus inch yellowfin. So that's got to be an exciting thing. He says guys are setting out chunks and then kind of jigging while they're chunking, just waiting for that bite, seeing what's going to produce better. And then that wind, obviously, put that bite to bed. But until some guys got out during a weather window on Friday, which is probably that same weather window that was aiming for up here, but just had a little bit bigger swell, and he said they caught them again. So the fish are still there. Doesn't seem like the wind has really pushed them out. If there's a lot of bait moving down the coast, that would make sense that those fish are going to kind of just station off there. So we'll hope that bite will kick back up when the wind dies down a little bit. Question remains as to whether or not they'll be there when that wind does lay down. But like you said, if you're making the report, you're probably keeping it tight-lipped for a little bit anyway. So.
Yeah, it seems like that bite traditionally over the last few years it gets us this time of year and it starts to slide west.
Yeah.
So whereas you had Habs Ledge and you had the Gully and you had Tuna Ridge were the hot spots throughout a lot of the summer, seems like now the Coimbra wreck is becoming one of the major spots. And there have been some years where when we had more yellowfin, and Adam LaRosa is going to cover this in the Canyon Run report about why we haven't seen quite so many yellowfin. He said that's because the squid haven't really moved in and settled in like they have in the past few years. He said I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, squid moved in. They were just sitting off the Coimbra wreck, and there were head boats running from New Jersey. Instead of going to the canyons, they were going all the way out there and limiting out on yellowfin. There was such a good run of squid that brought all the yellowfin in there. And we haven't seen those squid inshore so much this year. It's been mostly sand eels, so the yellowfin been hanging further off.
Yeah, last year you also had all those squid in like late September, early October off the coast of New Jersey and western Long Island.
Oh, yeah.
So you talk about things sliding west, there's still an opportunity for that to happen, especially with all this wind kind of pushing things inward. So that's definitely still in the cards. Also would like to touch on something that Kyle Tangent from Fisherman's Supply in Point Pleasant Beach mentioned that he spoke with a lobsterman last week who returned from tending his pots earlier in the week and told him that there were still loads of mahi-mahi around off the pots. So he believes that, offshore fishing will kind of kick back into action once the boats are able to sail. It's been just brutal out of Jersey. I know they have a hard time down there with the wind. So south
of Cape Cod, that was the mahi fishing has kind of been the shining light. There are boats from Ocean City, Maryland, Sunset Marina, where I checked in with all the way on up to Rhode Island. Anybody that was getting farther offshore, just barrelfuls of mahi-mahi. So, and some nice sized ones. So a lot of the chickens, the 3 to 5 pounders, and then some fish in the 8 to 10 pound range as well. That's been good. I know some boats put together a catch by switching over to tile fish as well. Did pretty well on tiles. Encouraging news of sword fishing improving too. Some of the boats, especially out of the mid-Atlantic, had some good daytime dropping and some nighttime fishing for swordfish. The marlin bite down there, Sunset Marina reported that the marlin bite has kind of picked right back up where it left off. Boats are doing double digits of white marlin in a day, so that's still going on pretty good. Seems like that's definitely moved south. We're not hearing as many white marlin up. I haven't heard of any
No more skilly men.
No, no more skillies south of Cape Cod for, man, it's been a few weeks now. But that looks pretty good. Adam's going to cover that. Should we kick it to the Canyon Runner right now?
Yeah, let's kick it to him. The Canyon Runner Sport Fishing Team is here to help you catch fish. They offer coaching and concierge services, seminars, and a virtual captain system which will exponentially help increase your catches inshore, midshore, and at the canyons. The report they provide gives you a sampling of what their virtual captain system looks like, which serves as your co-captain, providing all the fish catching and safety intel, including a built-in warning system and more. It gives you the ability to track over 400 member boats and 15 pro staff boats in real time. Check them out at canyonrunner.com.
All right. How you doing, Jimmy and Cheech? Let's kick off this last week of September report. At least we have something to talk about. We have some folks going hunting, as you can see, up in here. Some folks going to Florida. This person left their tracker on as they're going down. And then we have our folks down in the Outer Banks. Outside of our range, we just touched on that because they'll start fishing more and more down here. We have a lot of the folks from our membership going to go down here for the winter. But let's zoom in and start south to north. And the reason we'll start down here is the way the weather pattern was last week. These folks were actually able to fish a few different days. They had some decent fishing the previous week before the blow for the first time the entire season, in on 30 fathoms, 40 fathoms, in on areas called the Teacup and Massey's and the Hot Dog. So there was some concentration in here again. Unfortunately, they had about 3 fishable days. One of the days it was pretty good up in here in 30, 40 fathoms with boats that actually had green sticks. So the green stick boats, and there were a handful of charter boats down there with green sticks, were catching some yellowfin in here. It's hard to produce on rod and reel. But one of our pro staff boats had a good trip, had a good overnighter. They just stayed inside there. Fish are still here. Towards the end of the week, the last report, and if I pull up our NOAA chart, the last reports now, this was another one of our pro staff, the Marley. He went down here working the 30 and 40 fathoms line, doing what you should be doing because it's slowed up here. It didn't happen the day before. So he worked down the edge because that's eventually what's going to happen. These fish are going to move south. He fished these areas and it was all mahis. And by the way, that's what's mahi fishing, tile fishing. If the tuna aren't there, it's lights out for those 2 species. But here we had a report just yesterday, boats out of Virginia snuck up this way. They got out. There's a nice pocket of no wind here. They did have some fish in on lumpy bottom, in on some of these lumps up here. Tuna fish, flat out great. This is, if we click on our canyons, this is the Norfolk Canyon. Some of the best white marlin fishing of the year. Boats getting 20, 30 bites in a day, releasing double-digit marlin. There was a boat out of Cape May that fished for like 3 days, released close to 40. From the Norfolk to about 10, 15 miles to the south, there was real good white marlin fishing, and that fishing is just going to slide down the entire coast. Now, as we work up, sword fishing, daytime sword fishing is starting to finally turn on. You can look at anywhere from the Washington up to the Baltimore, up to the Wilmington. Boats that dedicated the day to it were getting between 2 and 4 bites. I think the best I saw, one boat did catch 4 swords. Working our way up the beach again, we did have folks try to put some effort in closer here. It's just loads of albacore, some bonita, no tunas to speak of, but plenty of action to bend the rod. Folks, we're looking for mahis in here. Unfortunately, the water temperature, just with 14 days of east wind, it cooled off enough where there's pretty much a lack of mahis anywhere on the inshore grounds. And you could see with what happened up here. We only really had a day and a half of good weather to get offshore to the canyon. Touch on that in a second. Boats trying to get offshore. Remember, we had this easterly flow of wind. And even on the days where it calmed down, we had this big easterly fetch. It was really tough to head this direction from New Jersey going east doing it. A lot of boats had to keep it close. Boats had to turn around. A lot of boats turned around even on days with no wind because when you had 12 days of east, there was a big heat. Boats did try to get out into the mud hole to work some of these pots, but we could see it on the water temperature on some of our boats. Here it was 68 degrees as we were going offshore on the 26th. The water cooled off. Once it gets below like 68, 69, really 70, the mahis just back out. They end up in the canyon, and it was like, party boats catching 100 mahis before they start their trip. That's where they all backed out to. But in here, there was a very occasional bluefin. This is fishing in the lanes. If we go to the NOAA charts, you'll see Fishing in the lanes here. There was a couple occasional bluefin. There was one day there was a very good bite in here on the farms up in this area. There was, I think right here, there was a fleet of 20 boats. I think like 6 or 7 boats hooked up that day. That was on the 27th. This is the Rockaway bite. There was a really good giant bite here Monday, Tuesday last week. There's a big fleet there. I believe this was the 27th. So that was Friday. Big fleet there, 25 boats, maybe 5 or 6 bites out of all the boats. But this action now, if you look where it is, if you look at the depth, this is going to go on for 2 more months. Right, we'll be talking on Thanksgiving. We'll be having guys out there seeing big bluefins and catching them now. For the last, so we used to call them ghosts 5 years ago because you'd see them and then they'd be gone. You never get a bite. Now they're catching them, and that should continue. Now, as we went east, we had a very sporadic. This is the Coimbra area. Here's the Coimbra wreck. Very sporadic bite. There's some big bluefins in here, not the giants, more the overs. Where the best fishing was by far, with guys catching 6, 8. We had one member with a dozen overs. This is, if you go to observations, here's the Montauk buoy, at least where it used to be, right in this area. This has been going on for 2 months now. There's boats there right now catching unders and overs. The fish are here. They haven't moved. It seems like more and more baits moved in. Unfortunately, not the squid that would have held the yellowfin. There really was never that major yellowfin chunk bite. But these bluefins haven't moved, and it was good. It was definitely better here south of the point than this is Habs Edge area. There wasn't much going on here last week. There was, you don't see it on the map. We had some members working the gully, some members working these lanes. Basically, Tuna Ridge and the gully had fish. Not as good a fishing, not even close to the fishing that they had over here, but there were fish to be had. And then the best news, I guess, we have for the folks out this way. This has been Crab's Ledge, the Regal Store, it's been very slow. Yesterday, day before, over the weekend, there were finally some bites at Crab's Ledge, more than just the sporadic one. Good news, the fish are probably going to turn on here. And as we get into the opening of the commercial giant tuna season on Tuesday, October 1st, you're going to see effort, switch back. You're going to see effort from Maine right on down the line. You can see we have boats fishing up here from Maine right on into the bay, east of Chatham, south of the islands. You're going to have a lot of effort at the CIA grounds, and you're going to have boats here. And there's going to be effort from top to bottom. You're going to see a quota filled very quickly. Should get interesting. There are so many bluefin around. It's just amazing what that fishery has turned into. Backing out and finishing off with the canyons. So you don't see it on this chart, but we did have a couple boats in Beach. A party boat spending a lot of time there did not do well. A private boat spending a 24 to 30-hour trip did quite well. Why were they in Beach? Why did they do well? Well, unfortunately, this is the only water temperature I could find, but it tells us all we need to know. You can see the eddy. Here it is. That eddy that we've been talking about for 2 months now is right here. Probably the best fishing would have been somewhere on the backside of the eddy between Beach and Hydro. These boats were in Beach. If they're on the front, there's front side of the eddy is usually not as good as the backside up here, but they caught. And this is the eddy, and this is blue water, and it's still up on the bank, which is great news. It's still, if we just take a measurement, it's still about 72 nautical miles, 71 nautical miles. It's a big, big body of water. It's going to hold together. And it's going to slowly move. As soon as we get a weather break, middle to the end of this week, we'll see boats out in West Atlantis and Atlantis. The only other reports we had from the canyon, you could see it. Sport boats had basically Thursday, Friday, they could get in, come home Saturday morning in a hard east. We were out there, literally stopped on a couple big eyes, went 2 for 4 on them, stopped on a couple yellowfin, then chunked all night long, didn't have a touch. Our boat decided to get up on the troll early to try to get another shot at the big eyes, and they trolled another 6 or 8 yellowfins. It was a good trip. Some of the party boats, there was at least 5 party boats there. They chunked from 6 to a dozen yellowfins, and a couple other charter boats caught as well. The bait was not abundant. That's the biggest downside to this. But it's the Hudson. It's the end of September and October. There's going to be fish caught there. Not nearly as much bait as there used to be, but there were fish there. Other than that, there was literally no reports from, we had Beach, we had nothing in here, we had nothing from the Hudson down. Out in here, it was no tunas, all these things, just lots of mahi-mahi, tile fishing, and swords. So anyway, that's the sum of it. Listen, for a lot of folks, it's getting to the end of the season. Quite honestly, there's the best fishing of the year. If you talk numbers, is usually October. Literally the worst weather of the year usually, but you can't say anything this year. The weather was just brutal. In our 42 years of chartering, we got about half as many trips in this year as we normally would have. The weather was absolutely insane. Maybe we're going to have one of these Octobers where it's going to be 72 degrees and no wind the whole time, and everyone's going to be fishing a lot again. But there's still plenty of season left, folks. Hope you enjoyed the time you got. And any of you folks who are switching over to hunting, good luck. As you can see, we had I'll just finish up with that. But we had several guys last week hunting out here. Some big numbers they put, big elk. But anyway, finishing up, Jimmy, Cheech, hope you have a great week. Talk to you folks soon.
So certainly some encouraging signs from Adam and the Canyon Runner report. The one of the best ones was seeing that there was some good fishing in Veach and some of that good water, that eddy that was been sitting out in the far eastern canyons is starting to move a little bit west, giving some more access. If we can just get ourselves out there, we'll see some some good catches coming up. We've got the new moon right now. That is this Wednesday, October 2nd. So, man, I'm hoping for a good month. I know the head boats. Adam mentioned he's been fishing among the head boats and that they've been struggling a little bit, putting their guys on plenty of mahi, but the tuna fishing, you're going out there with 28 guys, they're coming home with 6 to 10 tuna, so that's kind of a slower trip.
Yeah.
Still time for that all to improve. The only thing that I think would maybe throw a wrinkle into it is he said not much bait in the Hudson right now. Again, that could change. We've got another storm, it looks like, coming up. We've got some more rough weather ahead. But you never know. Sometimes rough weather in the back end of that can bring some really good fishing. And I think, I don't know. I think there's reasons to be hopeful for a great close to this offshore season. We've got one more report that's going to come to you next week. And then, I don't know, we'll still be fishing, but we just won't be talking about it quite as much.
Yeah, exactly.
Matt, any hope for you getting offshore in the near future?
I don't know. It has been like I've said in I think every other offshore report I've been a part of. It's been like the busiest year of my life. So I'm really hoping that we were talking about that bite south of the islands up here. I'm hoping that actually ends up materializing because last year it started off with top water.
You got out on that last year, didn't you?
Yeah. I got out with Connor from Red Top and his father, and we actually stuck a pretty good solid fish. We ended up releasing it because they didn't they had their commercial license at the time, so we didn't want to keep a wrecked fish. But we ended up releasing that fish. I would say it was like 55, 60-inch bluefin. Hit a live bunker that everybody was just piled up on top of these schools of like 14-inch bunker and throwing top water. Nobody was doing anything, so we snagged a couple, threw them in the live well, moved maybe 150 yards outside of the fleet and set up, and within 25 minutes or so we landed a nice fish. So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, hopefully that materializes. Giant season, the quota is reopening, so more boats are going to be going out and targeting giant tuna over the next week until that fills up. I know they left them biting, and there was some pretty good catch and release action up until the storm. So next week we'll be talking more about that and hopefully some more good recreational and canyon opportunities.
Yep.
So thanks for watching.